Hi, and how are you? Right. My name is Ken Mendes, and I'm chair of the board of directors for the Racial Unity Team. I'm so happy to be here today with all of you on a beautiful day, and I'm delighted to be representing the Racial Unity Team and a community organization that we have come together with. A couple of people involved in this, and I'm going to mention them. Barbara Rinconus, co-executive director of the Exeter Historical Society. Barbara, raise your hand.
Barbara.
Right. Emma Stratton, executive director of the American Independence Museum. Emma, thank you. And Julia Lanter, assistant director, Exeter Public Library. You know, we came together about 2 months ago and said, can we do something? And I found out that if you group up with people, you can do wonderful things. Look at this crowd. Look at what we pulled together. So thank you all. And of course, thank you to all of you for being here today, especially the children. I love to see the children learn about our history. So thank you for bringing them. We also wish to thank, we have a sponsor that has been very gracious to us, Kennebunk Savings. And I want to thank them for helping us pull this together. So thank you, Kennebunk Savings, for your work and helping us pull such events together. You know, we will never know the names and languages of first people who came to what is now New Hampshire. They arrived 12,000 years ago. Think about that, 12,000 years ago. That's about 10,000 years before Christ. That's a long time, and they were here already. The passage of time and movement of people have obscured their origins and these first settlers. The descendants of these people divided into bands, often called tribes. Among them were the Penaka, the Winnipesaukee, the Pigwacket, the Sokuki, the Kawasuk, and the Osepi tribes. They spoke different dialects of the Abenaki language. These people also are known collectively as the Abenaki, which is often translated as and you've probably heard this one, the people of the dawn. Oban means daybreak, and ski means earth and land. Our program today is 1.5 hours, and believe me, it's packed. There's a lot of things for the kids to do, a lot of things for the adults to do. If you're interested in learning more about the work of the Racial Unity Team, you can sign up. The table is over there, or any of the tables. And our agenda, after my introduction, there will be a land acknowledgement by Barbara Rinconus. Then we'll have a flag handover, tribal leaders Paul and Denise Pouliot, Kawasaki Band of the Penaka Abenaki people. Then we have a number of different people talking about bringing the Native American presence into the light. Basically, they're going to tell you what each of these organizations are doing to educate and bring the word of the Native Americans to the land, to others as well. The oral history will be shared by Denise and Paul. And are there any Native Americans or Native American people of Native American heritage? Right, if you want to share your story and if you have time, we'd love to have you hear from you. Right. And of course the children's table back there, so children, I know you're going to get bored sometimes when people stand up and talk, so if you feel like you want to do something a little different, there's a table over there, right? So without further ado, I'm going to invite Barbara to the microphone. Thank you, Barbara.
Today's observance takes place in Misquamscook, now called Exeter, in Nadakana, the traditional ancestral homeland of the Abenaki, Pennacook, and Wabanaki peoples past and present. We acknowledge and honor with gratitude the Alnenbach people, who have stewarded Ndakina and its Aki, Nibi, Olaquakak, and Awaasak, the land, the waterways, the flora, and fauna throughout the generations. We're going to have a handover of a tribal flag featuring our guests of honor, the Pouliats, Denise and Paul Pouliat. Denise is the Sagamoskwa, the head female speaker, and Paul is the Sagamo of the Kawasuk band of the Pennacook people that is headquartered in Alton. Paul has been an Indigenous leader since 1990, a historian, lecturer, and founding member of the New Hampshire Commission of Native American Affairs. Denise is an Indigenous multimedia artist and basket maker, serves on the New Hampshire Commission on Native American Affairs, the DOJ Violence Against Women Act Steering Committee, and the New Hampshire Public Health Association. Together, they serve as the Federal Bureau of Prisons Religious Advisors, are founding members of the Indigenous New Hampshire Collaborative Collective, affiliate faculty members of the UNH Native American and Indigenous Studies minor, and members of numerous regional advisory groups, including the Race and Equity in New Hampshire. Welcome.
We are here today to present Exeter with a tribal flag in honor of honoring Indigenous Peoples Day.
Why don't we, yeah. What are we doing?
All right. So we're going to just say, Kwai Nido Bak, Indelawasin Denise Pulio, Sagamo Squaw, Wadelawasin Paul Pulio, Sagamo, Kawasuk Band of Pennacook Abnaki people, Neona Ayan Odanako Nipi. Hi, friends. My name is Denise Pulio. I'm the head female speaker, and this is Paul Pulio, head male speaker, the Kawasuk Band of the Pennacook Abnaki people. We are from Odanako Nipi, which is the ancient name, which translates to the place of the narrowing waters, which is now known as Alton, New Hampshire.
We're going to share as well a description of what the flag means. It's all very symbolic. So we put together narratives for the towns that are going to fly the flag. The flag background is dark green to represent the white pines of the forest. The images in white is because of the, in our language, Walby means white, and we're people of the Dawnlands. So the root word, Wolby, is very important to us. So here you have a white image on here. The central image is of a white pine tree. It's a direct reference to us as the people of the white pines. Kawasuk actually means white pines. And the tree has three roots, which symbolize the major rivers that are here in our homeland, being the Connecticut, the Merrimack, and the Piscataqua. The rising sun background is also symbolic that we're part of the Wabanaki Confederation, which include all of the coastal tribes from the Merrimack up into Maine. We also have 13 rays out of the sun, which symbolizes the 13 moons of our year cycle. And the horizontal line along the bottom represents the land, obviously, because the tree's growing in the land, not anywhere else. And then the squiggle underneath the roots represents the waterways, which were very important to us as people. What we call wisdom curls, the two curl things, and one is a reflection in the water, is the canoe. And when you combine them, it becomes a wisdom curl, or a sign that we are keepers of our traditions. The corner ends are kind of like what you would call an infinity symbol. They represent like the yin and yang, where the male and female part come together as a community, clan, band, or just a plain family unit. So they are representing how people came together in peace, in unity, in the four corners of our territory. So that kind of gives you a full description of the flag. And we're going to share that. Whoever's going to be the keeper of the flag will give you the handout about the flag description.
There will be music in a little while. We're going to hear from Pat Yosha of the Racial Unity Team.
Can you hear me? Welcome, everybody. Celebrating Celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day has been on the radar of the Racial Unity Team from our beginning in 2015. Our mission, to advance relationships among people of different racial identities, increase understanding, and reduce bias in our community. We are indebted to the Select Board of Exeter for making this an official local holiday 1 year ago, when we first celebrated on this very spot. Today, 11 New Hampshire towns celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day, though 2, Portsmouth and Newmarket, recognize both Indigenous Peoples Day and Columbus Day going forward. There are apparently more than 150 towns that do not officially recognize this day. The Racial Unity Team's lens on Indigenous people has been through our attention to education, for it is clear to everyone here, I believe, that we did not learn in our study of American history very much of the story about Native Americans who had settled on this very land we are standing on more than 12,000 years ago. Omitted from our schooling was the narrative about physical and cultural harm, genocide, and discrimination that Indigenous people have faced since the colonization of this land. Absent from our textbooks has been a focus on the cultural contributions of Native Americans, from their medical practices, ritual ceremonies, their art, their literature, their music, their agriculture, even their participation as soldiers in U.S. wars. The New Hampshire state curriculum requires very little in the way of education on Indigenous people, and what is offered provides only a colonial perspective on events and Indigenous ways of life. The Racial Unity Team is working in several ways to ensure accurate, equitable history teaching. First, we have been concentrating on diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. You've heard about DEIJ. Developments in our local school district, working with the administration, the school board, and teachers to give attention so that Indigenous people's stories are included. Second, the Racial Unity Team is monitoring the activities and composition of the State Board of Education, with a goal of appointments to this board that are more racially diverse and to focus on curriculum standards that include education about Indigenous people. Third, the Racial Unity Team will continue to work with legislators to make Indigenous Peoples Day an official state holiday. In the spirit of social justice, equity, equality, and inclusion, we believe these changes are worth making. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone, to Exeter Public Library, newly renovated. Yay, give yourselves a hand, we did it. My name is Julia Lanter, and I'm the Assistant Director at your Exeter Public Library, and I am so happy to see all your faces here today. Libraries aren't just places for old, musty books, but we like those too. They're also places to learn and come together as a community. And look at us, we're choosing to be here today and respecting and learning about Native cultures, our Indigenous people, and their history. And it's so wonderful to see each and everyone here today. I want to celebrate things that you can do, not just today, but throughout the month of October at Exeter Public Library to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Month. We actually are wonderfully happy to be partnering with Exeter Garden Club to have a Three Sisters Seed Library that is a year-long collection. You can come in with seeds from your garden, share them with your fellow community members, grow beautiful plants and flowers, and then harvest them this time of year and return them to the library to be used next year. So for those of you who haven't used your garden yet, come in and grab some seeds for next year. And those who are harvesting, come join and make this a beautiful cycle
of celebrating the land, which is so in step to the indigenous cultures of the Abenaki. I thank you all for being here, and I look forward to seeing each and every one of you at the library. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Emma Stratton with the American Independence Museum here in Exeter as well. I'm a little too tall. Let me see. This is better. I first want to mention a wonderful project that we've worked together with the Exeter Public Library on that is now on view in Stewart Park, which is just behind the shops on Water Street. We have put together a story walk of a book called We Are Water Protectors, and it is about the Indigenous connection to waterways and the importance that they bring to us. That is on view now. We'll be doing a more kind of guided walkthrough of that later today, but it is on view and up for the whole month, again along Stewart Park, right behind the Water Street shop. So feel free to check that out. We were very pleased to work with Exeter Public Library on that project. So thank you, Julia, for helping with that. I also want to talk a little bit about the work we're doing at the American Independence Museum. We are focused on colonial and revolutionary history here in Exeter and of New Hampshire. The first aspect I want to talk about is the archaeology that we've done on our site. I actually brought some objects with us that are on view under the blue tent just behind me. In 2019, we did archaeology on our property, and we found a number of items that date back 2,700 years ago, just a foot beneath the surface of where we're standing. And to me, that was really eye-opening in the sense of realizing that people have been using this land for thousands of years, coming to use these waterways with their abundant food sources, and on the property where our Lad Gilman house now is, for thousands of years. So again, we've brought some of those objects with us. I hope you'll come and take a look at what we have discovered on our property. And in terms of our interpretation and everything that Pat was talking about that the Racial Unity team is promoting, we are taking that very seriously at the American Independence Museum as well, and looking at the stories we are telling and bringing a different lens and a different perspective to them to be more inclusive, and talking about the different people that were here in New Hampshire, including the indigenous populations, and the role that our military and that the country took, and those effects that we feel even today that were based on past precedents that were set. So I hope you will all come visit us at the American Independence Museum for a tour and to see our new interpretation and the new stories that we are bringing to light, to really tell more about all of the people that lived here in New Hampshire during that time period. So thank you for being here today, and we hope to see you soon.
I'm Barbara Rimkunis from the Exeter Historical Society. Our theme today was bringing the Native American presence into the light. The story of this place, Misquamscook, is longer and deeper than the history that's usually told. It's customary to begin the story of this town in 1638, and that is the beginning of Exeter, New Hampshire. But it's not the beginning of the story of this place. We're standing at a place that has thousands of years of human history. People were drawn here because of the river. This is a unique location. The rolling falls of fresh water that tumbles into the salty mix that leads out to the sea. It's a place where fish come back to breed because their ancient DNA tells them this is the place. And to people, they are delicious. A bountiful resource. Misquamscook, the place of the red fish, salmon, and shad, and a river herring called alewives. For thousands of years, and that can't be stressed enough, thousands of years, people came here to fish and plant and hunt. How can we find that story? Historians are trained, me included, to look at the record, the written word, and amazingly, we usually only look at our own records. So we just reread our own story. English settlers arrived in 1638, named it Exeter after Exeter, England, magnanimously drafted a treaty with the local Indians to share the land. They lived together a few years and then the Indians left. That's the story. Just poof, thousands of years of indigenous history pushed aside. Or so we might think, although we'd be wrong. By the 1670s, Exeter's town records already reflect that the indigenous people, the Abnaki-Pennacook people who lived here, were largely gone. Misunderstandings, conflicts, enslavement forced people away. How do we now bring those thousands of years back to the story? The actions of our predecessors, often our direct ancestors, have brought us to where we are today. We won't find that history in books or even in archaeological evidence. How do we find it? How do we bring the native presence into the light? We can ask. Eviction isn't extinction. Indigenous New Hampshire peoples are still here. Let's ask. Let's stand still and listen to history not written in books, but written on the land. Our town seal has a picture of an alewife on it. It doesn't say Revolutionary War capital or have a big schooner, one of our early industries. So maybe let's start with that alewife and its kin and remind ourselves that we live in Musquamscook. And to do some listening, I'm going to ask the Pulios to come back.
She's so correct. I mean, this was a place of the salmon to us. Even the way we say it today was anglicized. We didn't have the letter Q in our vocabulary, but we still know what it means. It was the place where the red fish came. When Exeter was looking at removing this dam, we were very encouraged because we've been hearing from fisheries people that our fish nurseries from marine life had been cut off since the 1600s. All of these dams that were put in place during the colonial first arrival time period to make sawmills and grist mills and other power sources essentially did the same thing that happened in the plains when they sent out the buffalo hunters and they massacred millions of buffalo. They tried to starve the plains indigenous people. Here, I don't think they really had any recognition that what they were doing is cutting off one of the most valuable food resources we had. Believe it or not, our growing season is not that great here in New Hampshire, so agriculture really didn't take off until probably somewhere around 1 AD or so. We're not quite exactly sure, but agriculture wasn't our main food source. It was the predictable fish migrations that were either in the spring at the first moon after the waters started to melt, what we call ice out, and all the way up to the ice in when the tomcod, which was another fish, would migrate out to the ocean as well. So we had a 4-season supply of fish, and this place was very important to us. But as colonials started to cut off our food supply, we suddenly were dependent on other resources, going back to the paleo times of hunting and gathering only for what we could gather in the forest. So it may have been subtle to shut off all these rivers along these estuaries that go to the ocean, but we're still enduring a tragic time period. Our fisheries out in the ocean now are dying off. We don't see salmon, ocean-going salmon trying to come back yet. We hope that we can reestablish these fishways because our fisheries are dying. Our fleet in Portsmouth and Rye are aging out. There's only 9 ground fishing families still working the coast, and international fishing has really depleted what we have off our coast. But if these, what we call them nurseries, if we could get these estuaries and these ocean connected streams and rivers reconnected again, our fish will have more spawning capability, and maybe the fish will be won't be depleted. And it's so important what happened here in Exeter, and is soon to happen in Durham, we hope, is to see the fish come back. We were in Durham when they were the fish were trying to spawn into the UNH watershed again. And at that dam, we saw blueback, river herring in great numbers at the face of the dam, trying to make it back upland. And it's almost tragic to think that this species, or any of these ocean-going species, are still trying to spawn in our waterways inland, and they've been deprived of that right to do that. We have to think more globally and sustainably as people. I mean, we're not just from the past. We're here today in the present, trying to be socially conscious, environmentally and socially just, and do what's right for everybody. These rivers are critical to our long-term survival, especially in this time of climate change. Do you want to say anything?
I just want to thank the town of Exeter about being the first to step forward and make those changes. You are leading this change, and we want to thank you for everything that you've done to begin this process, and which is why we want to honor you with the flag, and which is why we are here to personally thank each and every one of you for thinking about the next generations to come, and for taking care and truly stewarding this land as we would have. And so we just want to take this moment and recognize each of you for all that you have done for us and for the future. With that being said, we are going to sing our song for Ndaki Na, which is the song that we sing for our homelands. The words are Ndaki Na, which means our homelands. We thank those who came before us, and we thank Creator for everything that we have here.
Ndaki na, away, away. Holy, go on, gone, away. All you need, Kisina was. All you need, Kisina was. The Ndaki na, away, away. Holy, go on, gone, away. All you need, Kisina was. All you need, Kisina was. The Ndaki na, away, away. Holy, go on, gone, away. All you need, Kisina was. All you need, Kisina was. The Ndaki na, away, away. Holy, go on, gone, away. All you need, Kisina was. All you need, Kisina was.
Olioni, Midik Gwaldamina, Oli don't go ungone. We give thanks that we remember still. We thank you all.
Wasn't that wonderful? Thank you so much. Appreciate you coming down on very short notice, and I just love it. there's a change in the program. We're moving on. I'm having trouble with the technical side of playing audio, but I don't want to break what just happened. It's so much more uplifting, at least for me. So I'm going to call upon our Native American here to tell us a little bit about herself and your experience. And what's your name, by the way? Kimmy. Yes. Go ahead.
Sio Osija Nijra Hanadega Kimi Dawadowa Jichalagi. Hello, how are you? My name is Kimmy and I'm Cherokee. I'm a Cherokee Nation citizen living at large in New Hampshire. A little bit about my family lines. So we actually come from Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Oklahoma. I am the 6th great-granddaughter of Chief Doublehead. He was actually killed by our tribe for some dealings with treaties back in the early 1800s. My other side is the Rileys. Samuel Riley was a trader in Indian Territory in Tennessee. He was actually a business partner of Chief Doublehead. They traded and negotiated for use of the ferries down there. My 5th great-grandmother was actually a business deal. So Chief Doublehead traded 2 of his daughters, Nigidiu and Gulustiu, to Samuel Riley for use of the ferries on the Hiawassee River down there. I am descended from Gulustiu. We actually got to go see her grave. I went to my niece's wedding in Tennessee last month, 2 months ago. And we got to go visit her gravesite, which is over 200 years old. It was a very intense experience. The other side, the Drumgool side, they were on the Trail of Tears in 1838 and 39. They were moved from the Tennessee area into Kuiskui District in Oklahoma. My great-grandmother, Ruby Rice, she was born in 1889 in Fort Gibson, Oklahoma. She was probably 8 years old when both of her parents were killed. We're still not sure how my great-great-grandparents were killed. There was a lot of things going on in that area at the time. My great-grandmother was put in the Cherokee Orphan Asylum. That was designed by the Cherokee Nation to keep Native people close to their kin, preserve their language, preserve their traditions, educate them and care for them when they were orphans. Sadly, in 1903, the Cherokee Orphan Asylum burned down, and my aunt and my great-grandmother were left homeless. They had an aunt in the area that had a priest friend, and he got the girls into a Catholic boarding school. My thinking is they were probably some hot tickets running around Muskogee, and Aunt Belle said, "You girls are going to boarding school." So they were put in a Catholic boarding school. In the process, they forgot their language. They forgot their culture. And they forgot everything that they were raised around. They graduated. My great-grandmother went on to a Catholic hospital, and she received her RN degree. And she and my aunt met some guys in Muskogee, white men, and they married and they moved away from the tribe. So in this process, our family has been raised culturally Native American, but we forgot our language. We do have some family traditions that we know are of our culture. And moving forward to today, we have actually lost 2,500 first language speakers in our tribe, and the Cherokee language is in danger of becoming extinct. So there's this whole, it's beautiful though, because there's this whole revitalization going on all over our country to bring back our native languages, our native cultures, and hopefully land. The scary thing is, and that's why I'm so glad there are kids here today, and that we can maybe get some more cultural education on Native Americans into the schools. I am a nurse myself. I was sitting at my desk the other night, and my nurse's aides were all around me. my Cherokee teacher in Oklahoma, my daughter and I take Cherokee lessons from the tribe. So my Cherokee teacher in Oklahoma had messaged me something, and I hit the play button, and they heard him speaking Cherokee, and they asked, "What language is that?" And I said, "It's Cherokee," and I was asked, "What's Cherokee?" I had never felt so devalued in my entire life, because this is who I am. This is who I was raised to be. And it's so frightening that we are losing not only our native history, but our history. And our children need to learn where they came from. It's so important. It's so important. And Wado for letting me talk to you and tell my story. Thank you.
Remembering our history is always important. We can be one nation, but we have our different cultures and language and so many different ways. So thank you very much for sharing that. Okay, the next item on here is the story walk. And if you want to join Emma Staton, Emma, right there, it's about a half-hour walk. Come on.
Julia and I will be leading a more guided walkthrough of the story walk for anyone that would like to join. Again, that's over at Stewart Park. It's about a half mile, a little less walk from here, so you're welcome to drive and park right behind Stillwell's, the ice cream shop, or follow us over. We're going to walk over. So if anyone would like to join on that story walk, come meet up with Julia and I over here and we'll lead that walk. But it is up for the rest of the month, so you're feel free to enjoy that on your own time as well. Thank you.
And of course, the children's activity table is open, so spend some time there. We'll be here. We can talk to each other, get to know one another, and it's always a good time to learn about the different organizations and what they're doing. So thank you for coming. I appreciate it, and make sure the children are there. Thank you.